Okay. On all
We're
platforms now.
good. Welcome
Okay.
to the other morning show. I'm Dimebag Doily,
I'm True Powers Mine.
and
This is the other morning, Joe. What is today's date?
I don't know.
What your
I
computer
don't
says?
know. Oh, the 27th, April 27th.
2018, the year of our Lord.
There you go.
All righty.
So,
We got a special guest in the house tonight. We have Brian Ellison. He was a House District 8 Michigan Libertarian candidate. He since has dropped out of the race, but he's still very opinionated and very knowledgeable. Me and Brian has had several
he's
conversations.
running for House Representative in District 8 of Michigan.
I just said that.
Oh, okay.
And he, once again, he brings
My bad,
a
folks.
great insight to the show. So without further ado, Brian, you on the line?
Hey, how you guys doing?
All right, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I just wanted to correct on that introduction. I am still active in my campaign for House District 8.
House District 8.
So we were running a Senate campaign, and that, it took a lot more support than we were able to get on the ballot. But as of last week, April 24th, this week, Tuesday, April 24th, we got on the ballot officially as a Libertarian candidate in District 8 for U.S. Congress. So
Awesome. Hey, real quick, can we go into what does it mean to be a libertarian nowadays?
Oh, yeah, man, that's a good question because it depends on who you ask, right?
Right.
So, I mean, the basic concept of libertarianism is, and kind of my campaign slogan is all of your freedoms all of the time, and it's the basic libertarian slogan. And what that means to me is it's in opposition to people who want freedom some of the time. So they want what they want. So, for instance, if you look at a typical big party like, say, the Republicans, they want their gun rights.
Right.
But they don't want other people to have their right to use intoxicating substances because it's immoral or for whatever.
Right.
So they just want their own freedoms. And then you have the Democrats who they used to be called liberals. You can't even call them that anymore because they don't believe in liberty. But they want to be able to be able to do drugs in some very limited circumstances, but they want to ban weapons. So it's like we're the party that represents people that are not just within our own interests. So we represent everybody.
Right.
And what we don't represent is special interests and corporations, and we want small government. It depends on who you ask. Some of us want no government, but that's a different discussion. But ultimately, we just want to get the government as much out of our lives as possible, so that we can live free, so that we can not have to be slave wages,
Right.
wage slaves for giving 30 or 40% of our income to the government so they can waste it killing people overseas.
And I don't think people really realize, Brian, just how devastating corporations have been to the average American in their day-to-day affairs, as far as our corporation wars, the corporate policies, as far as livable wages, and even corporations in terms of being special interests, how they can pass things and make money from themselves and their cronies, and the rest of us are just basically ass out.
Absolutely. And all of that influence, all of that corporate influence, it stems from the government. And that's what I think a lot of times some people really get, that corporations are doing bad things, and corporations are hurting our economy and they're hurting the middle class. And all of that's true, but it's all facilitated because of the government. Without the government, the corporation wouldn't even exist. And so the corporation is a legal fiction defined by the government that allows a group of people to pool their resources to engage in commerce, but they're protected, their risk is protected, and it's passed on to the taxpayers through the limits of liability as a corporation. So they're able to take all their money out of the company, declare bankruptcy, and then it becomes everybody else's problem.
Right.
Where if the corporation didn't exist, or if you're a sole proprietor and you're in business, you're ultimately personally liable for whatever you do.
Yes.
So the corporations are protected. And so nobody gets held liable, and because they're able to be so profitable, they're able to essentially run the government. I mean, the government and corporations are literally two sides of the same
hand in hand now.
So when you say you want small government, do you mean small government towards like corporations? Because when you say small government, the liberals got their version of small government. The conservatives, they got their
version.
Got their version of small government, and then the libertarians got their version of small government. So when you say small government, is it small government towards putting the taxpayers' money, giving the taxpayers back the taxes they paid in, and making corporations, pay their fair share? Are you talking about, well, we'll cut off the American people that's paying the majority of that's bearing the load, and we'll cut their benefits off so we can increase benefits for corporations? Because
so we don't believe. I'm sorry to cut you off.
No,
we don't believe in benefits for anybody. I mean, we think that the government shouldn't be giving anybody anything because, first of all, the government doesn't have anything to give anybody that they don't have to steal from somebody else. So, the taxation fundamentally is immoral, right? That's part of our one of our stances is that to take, and it doesn't matter if the money goes to good things, right? It doesn't matter if they're taking my money to help feed the poor. That's not charity. That's still stealing my money to give it to somebody else.
Correct.
And at the end of the day, I would feel better about it if I knew exactly where my money was going, but I would rather just have that choice to put my money where I think it can best be put to use. And so that's kind of what we believe in. So if you were to cut the influence that corporations were able to have on the government, then, fundamentally the rights will roll back to the people. The corporations won't be able to control government. Government will then be forced to be accountable to the people that elect them. If they're accountable to people that elect them, then the people that elect them will get, will be better represented. And so, I think fundamentally, what I would like to see personally, and a lot of libertarians, is just the shift of power from the federal government, where it's all centralized right now, and which enables such big business control, and get the control back down to the state level, and then once we do that, get the states to get control back down to the local level, because if you're active at all in politics, that your vote matters much more at the local level than it does at the federal level. So if we took control back from the federal government where it's centralized, because we know they don't represent the people in Washington D.C. can't represent the people of the Detroit area the same way they represent the people in Missouri, or the same way in Washington State, or whatever. So why is all that power centralized? So I think it needs to be given back to the states. That's the way the Constitution was designed anyway. And then again from there, the states need to be giving power back to the local governments and so on. So we just need to kind of rewind. There's been 200 something years of the government creating more and more laws and bureaucracies, and at some point we're not going to be able to handle anymore, right? So we'd like to see that unraveling peacefully, I think.
Well, see, I think a lot of the problem comes with the implementation of said laws, because most of the laws that protect minorities and women are all federal laws that the states have to comply with. Because let's be honest, if we let the certain states do what they want to do, we're going to wind back this thing a little too far for most people.
1952.
For most people's tolerance. And then, also we got to understand that you cannot regulate goodwill towards each other. It has to be in us to be decent towards each other. You can make certain laws that you can't steal from your neighbors or abuse your neighbors and all that. But what's in a person's heart, and that's, I think, is something that no one ever talks about when we deal with political terms, because what's in a person's heart will truly dictates their public policies.
It's what's in their pockets.
No, well, he mentioned something. The reason why you can't do certain drugs in certain states right now is because there is a belief.
You're fogging up.
There is a belief in a moral code of behavior that most Americans subscribes to.
Right.
And this is the Christian doctrine. Okay, that's why you're not going to sit there and smoke your joints and your blunts and your pipes, on a public bus. That's the same reason why you won't drink a beer on a public, because there's a sense of decency that we get from what we believe in. If you believe, you believe, and that's a good thing and it's a bad thing. And I just want to ask you real quick, if you was a senator, let's say that would have went through, would you have addressed the Native American justice issue? Because the overall theme that I've been hearing has been justice. So how do we make it justified? How you, me, this man, my neighbors, we're all on this land, which we kind of know wasn't necessarily acquired, legally or honestly, for lack of a better word, stolen ground.
Right. No, and I understand exactly what you're saying. So, the way that I would refer to it, and the way that libertarians kind of view property rights is justly acquired property. So, meaning that the property was acquired through just means, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the problem with, and this is something that certainly personally I struggle with, and I don't know, I would imagine probably a lot of people do, is if we go, how far back do we rewind the clock to try and find justice? And the further back that we rewind it, it becomes more and more unclear. And so even if you go back to the Native Americans, we can't think of the Native Americans as this united group of people. They weren't. I mean, they all had their own individual tribes,
own territories.
They were fighting over territories within amongst themselves. So at what point do we say, okay, well, this part of land belonged to the Cherokee Indians before we took it, but the Cherokee Indians took it from the Mohawk Indians, and the Mohawk Indians took it from the Chippewa Indians. And
right.
So, eventually we get back and say, okay, well, the cavemen own everything. Right. So I think that you get to a point where it just becomes, it's just such a cumbersome process to try and figure out how do you get to that point of justice. But this is why I struggle with it, is at the same point, I think that it's important. Like, I don't think that we can just say, say the government collapses right now.
Right.
That the people with the most resources are still going to be wealthy. They're going to, the de facto government's going to pop up.
Right.
And the same people are going to be in control. Right. So, how do we get to a point where we feel like there's a sense of equity, where the people who have been maligned and have been disadvantaged are able to be on equal footing? Because a libertarian society is real easy if we all start from zero.
Yeah.
Right. If everybody starts over from scratch and we all work it to our own benefit and everything, it's easy to figure out. Unfortunately, that's not real life. So I think there's a really fine line, and this is one of the things I really struggle with. I think that there is a need for some restorative justice.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot wrap my head around what that looks like and what would exactly be the perfect solution to that. It's just one of those things that I struggle with, right?
Well,
I don't know what the right answer is.
So where do you stand on reparations for descendant of slaves that built the foundation of the wealth of this country's wealth? Because that was a lot of labor.
It's kind of I agree, and it's kind of a similar thing. And if we look back on it, we look at, say, and I haven't traced my lineage back far enough to know, but I don't know where my people came from, and you guys, you have a little bit better advantage of that. You at least have an idea of what continent. If you don't know,
we got the last name of our slave owners.
That's right. So it's as far as reparations, I don't know what that I don't know what that looks like in a just society. I don't know how
back then
I
they
don't know how
said it was you would get 40 acres, a mule, and $100.
That was a general.
So
general
if you do 40 acres, a mule, and $100 from the 1800s, and give them what that $100 would be worth today, don't you think that would be like a sort of a starting point? You know,
I guess my biggest question would be, where does that come from? So where does that
from the United States government?
No, it would come from the corporations, because the corporations will actually have a book record of such and such slave and such mine or such and such plantation, and we could actually follow their labor through that. But I wanted to touch on something about how to figure this thing all out. And let's use a case law, an actual case that has happened within the past 80 years. And the case I'm talking about is the case of the nation of Israel. You know, we all know that the League of Nations basically cut off the slough of Palestine and said the Jews are going to be here based upon traditional, I guess, archaeological data they had at the time, saying that the Hebrews actually lived at this point. So what I'm saying is, let's just go back 2,000 years ago, and whoever was on the land 2,000 years ago, let's just give it back to that. But once again, I'm with Brian on this. This is retarded, because we go back to so far, it gets really convoluted.
But how is it retarded?
Not with the reparation thing. I'm talking about with the land seizure and acquisition thing. We have to come to a point to where don't you think those said people should be compensated for that, though? If they're in existence still, absolutely. But what if that one politician, a female that refuses to give up her DNA? What if we find out, even though she looks like she's from Norway, she really does have some Cherokee in her? You know, so what portion of that pot does she get? Whatever 10th of a percent that's in her blood, it's starting to get really ridiculous. We have to come to the point to where we realize we're all equal human beings. And what I mean by equal human beings is that we all need air, we all need food, and we all need shelter. That's universal, okay? We start with that as our base.
And I agree.
And then we build on that, Brian.
I think we just need to start with treating each other equal, right?
Yes. And also the animals. If we don't treat the animals right, I'm sorry, I don't mean to break this off, but I've been talking to this guy named Stephen Hindy from Shark, showing animal respect and kindness. Okay, and the simple philosophy here: if we can't, if you and you should know about this, Brian. In a lot of political organizations, they have these live pigeon shoots. Hold on, this big truck's passing. We're outside on my new deck, but they have this thing called the live pigeon shoot. It's a fundraiser. What they do is have these birds that are malnutrition, they're dehydrated, they're held in boxes, and all these rich guys goes out there with their shotguns and blow these birds to smithereens, and then the workers come and gets their bodies, or even children, okay? Now, this goes back to what we were talking about if we don't treat people right. You know, if you're sitting here blasting cruel, little innocent animals, and you're the judge, or you're the county board of directors, or whatever, or you're the senator, or you're the representative, that's letting you know what time it is right there. If they're going to do this to animals because they can get away with it, just think what they would do to you and me if they could get away with it.
Where is the 8th district of Michigan located?
It's 3 counties. It's 2 full counties and then a part of another county. So it incorporates it's Ingham County, Livingston County, and North Oakland County, which is southeast of Lansing, from southeast Lansing and all the way across to the north part of Metro Detroit.
Okay, that's huge. How many people do you think are in there? About 3 million?
I don't know. I don't think there's quite 3 million. It's the Livingston County in the middle is pretty rural.
Okay.
So there's probably, I don't know, 600,000 or 700,000 people, I would guess.
I just have a question. Okay.
That's a guess. I probably should know.
We can't avoid this question any longer. What was your motivation for putting out the press release pertaining to arming the homeless with shotguns? Because to the untrained ear, that does sound kind of terrifying. But what was your motivation?
Well, this was there were several layers to this concept and this idea. One was, first of all, we knew that the Senate campaign was winding down. We didn't get the support that we needed, and so we wanted to do something with that platform before we lost it.
Right.
Because it's, a Senate candidate has a little bit bigger platform than a Congressman candidate. So we wanted to do something impactful, and we wanted to do something that would get attention, that on its surface, like you said, or you first hear it, it sounds crazy, but something that fundamentally focused on libertarian principles and highlighted the kind of the injustice of just we wanted to pick a group of people that is disenfranchised,
Right.
And that we could show how their rights are being taken away, because people don't realize that they've lost rights, or that they're losing their rights. They still think that because it says liberty on our money that we're free.
Yes.
And so we wanted to so that's why we chose the homeless, and we wanted it to have shock value, and at the same time the timing was it was the high school kids were protesting against guns, and we just wanted to have a counter narrative to that as well. And so I think it was a fairly successful short media campaign.
So if you from the state of Michigan, and if you win this House of Representatives seat, you being from Michigan, or you is it some way, or you prepared to propose legislation so they can fix the water in Flint?
Man, you know what? The problem with that is that the government has already given, and you call it spent. They haven't really spent it. Who knows where it went, but they estimated originally that the cost of the fix was going to be somewhere in just north of $55 million or something to that effect. And they've given so far almost 10 times that amount. And the problem is still not fixed. And so this to me, that's just one big, huge example of how inefficient and ineffective the government is at solving any problem.
So
we cannot count on the government to solve anything.
So how?
And so
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
So what is the libertarian solution to this problem? What would be a libertarian solution?
So we would propose a voluntary solution, which is similar to how we were addressing the arming the homeless campaign. It should be handled through voluntary contributions. The problem with that right now is that our society has become so dependent on government, and government is so inefficient that we end up giving all this money in taxes, and none of the problems are solved, and in fact the government creates more problems. Mm-hmm. And so this kind of just gets back to the fundamental issue of we need to get the government out of our lives and out of these situations, so we don't have to deal with it. So the libertarian solution would be, instead of the government, and frankly, right now the government caused this problem. The state of Michigan caused it. But who is the state of Michigan? Like I mentioned earlier, the government doesn't have anything. The government doesn't have anything unless it steals it from the people.
Okay, well, what's this business about Nestle, though?
Yeah.
Nestle taking the water and giving the people nothing
bullshit.
back.
Yeah.
In China...
Sorry, I don't know if you're live on radio.
No, you can say bullshit. You can say whatever you like. Totally candid.
Be yourself, man. Be yourself.
So that's just it's complete bullshit. And there's a lot of libertarians out there that'll disagree with me, because they can say, well, Nestle owns that property, and so they built the wells, they paid to improve it, they can pump the water. And I say, who the hell does the water belong to? The water doesn't belong to Nestle just because they built the well. I know that on my property I can't build a well.
Right.
And if I could build a well, would I be able to pump all the water out that is under all my neighbors' houses? No, of course not. Right. So, but the problem is, again, corporations are able to work the government system, so they go in. Nestle is they're like vultures. They go into a community that is in distress, that has the resources that they want, mm-hmm. and they go in and I think they built them a baseball stadium in the city, and so they come in, they're the good guys, and they're going to give jobs to the local community. In the meantime, they're going to pump out all the water, and then they're going to abandon the town. So, it's ridiculous. But why are they allowed to do that? Because laws are set up to allow corporations to benefit from how government is structured.
But that's what's the founder.
So,
you mentioned about going back to the Constitution. We have to understand, Brian, the guys that wrote the Constitution said this government was founded to protect the opulent minority from basically the savages, which is the rest of us. So really, in that terms, America has never departed from its constitutional right, because the elites have always been protected in this country. And by the way, have you noticed any more earthquakes up there because of Nestle's drilling activities?
I don't know if that's what it was from, but I didn't feel it myself. But I did hear that there was an earthquake up here not too long ago. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's the cause of it or not. But it
almost sounds like it. Let's look at what's happening
fracking, who knows?
In Oklahoma with the fracking that you just mentioned. They're having 3,200 tremors a year in a region that traditionally isn't seismically active. So, I mean, it kind of goes back to, what is your opinion, Brian, and be quite frank and quite honest and brutally honest about global warming and the implications of human activities on the environment?
I think that I think there certainly has been some impact. I think that climate change is part of it. I think is just natural, and I'm not a scientist.
No, that's true.
Frankly, I haven't read enough reports. I think that to me it's only common sense that human activity has contributed. I don't know that there's really any legitimate question about that. I think the question would be is to what extent.
Yes.
And that I don't know, because I don't know the research. But I think that I think that we should all be responsible users of energy.
Yes, renewables.
I don't think that we should be harming the environment, for the sake of profits. But the problem is that government regulations don't help with that. So we can, the EPA doesn't protect from pollution. They just fine companies after they've polluted, and it's a fixed fine, and their liability is always capped and everything. So, what should we do? I think we should be responsible humans. I think it comes down to individuals. It comes down to taking the powers away from the corporations so that they can't abuse the system. And it's not a system. I think a lot of people are looking for a solution where we can say, okay, if we just do that, if we just do this one thing, then we can fix it.
Right.
And I just, frankly, I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's ever the case. I think that there's always the government has tried to solve problems for 200 plus years. The federal government has, and all they've done is made it worse. So,
in some respects, but
I know you're gonna correct me, and you're right. There's some good things that have come out of government action, but ultimately all of that government action, all of the good that came out of government action was the result of a shift in society.
Yes.
Right? So
yes, agree.
I agree. That's what causes government action, and so. If we to look back and say, well, the government did this for us. No, the government responded and reacted to what society was telling them to do. And so why do we need this government that is so slow to react to changes in society? Why do we rely on them to solve any problems?
Because they have the guns.
And
they can put us down.
Yeah, and they're trying to take all of them.
Yes, they are.
So, I think, and that's why I think it's there's not like I wish there was a magic wand or a magic law or something that could change, that could help reverse global warming or whatever. But unfortunately, every time the government acts to try and fix it, whether it's through proposing, carbon taxes, through changing emissions laws in cars or whatever, all it does ultimately is it hurts the consumers and it doesn't protect the environment.
So
And
why
go ahead.
why can't we use the technology and the resources that this country has and make things a lot better, like making homes energy self-sufficient, to where your house creates, the all the electricity and heat it needs, just, and if it's all new houses should be mandatory that they're built this way, and older homes retrofitted.
But that'd be more government regulation,
Yeah,
wouldn't it?
I think you could answer that question probably if you think about it. Who will be hurt if we make a society that's self-sustaining? If I have a house
The military industrial complex.
Myself, that's one of them, right?
Yeah.
All the corporations. So and that's what I mean. Corporate interests and gas lobby and all that contributed to delaying progress on the electric car. And so you see where, frankly, if the government wasn't in the way, we'd have flying cars right now. But
yeah.
Government slows technology. They slow down the ability for us.
But if corporations own these politicians, if me or you came up with an idea to do away with the gasoline engine, we're gonna be sleeping with the fishes.
Yeah, you will.
That's right. And if you look at something like just a simple example like Tesla. So Tesla's cars are the cars they build are not. I mean, they're great cars, but they're not for the average consumer. They're expensive, but they are they could be a good solution to some carbon emissions if they're depending on where the power comes from. I mean, if the power comes from a power plant generated by coal, then you're really not saving much of anything.
But we got the technology to do that, though. It's not like we're doing this show on yesterday's technology, and so the technology and the wealth is here to put all this stuff in place. Like when you look at other countries, other developed countries, I can get on a train in Japan and go from one end of that country to the other end of that country in 2 hours. Yeah, it takes me over 12 hours to get from St. Louis to Chicago on a train. That makes no sense when the technology is here. You can get on the train in New York and should be able to be in LA by 7 o'clock that evening. Their time. And
our government just doesn't spend money on infrastructure. They spend money on destructive stuff.
Right. Or education.
And so, but it's all about it's also about how it's set up to eliminate conversation. So if you or competition. So if you go back to the example with Tesla here in Michigan, the Automotive Dealer Association, you have to be a licensed dealer in order to sell an automobile here in Michigan. And so Tesla wasn't able to even sell. They wanted to set up a showroom where people could test drive, but because they were a manufacturer and not a dealer, they couldn't do that. And so the dealers blocked them out, and the government let it happen.
Right.
So that's just one small example of how where we see there's a solution to a problem, but because of these, whether it's through government licensing, whether it's through regulation, whether it's through taxation or tax incentives or tax breaks, technology is not able to be realized to its full potential because of the existing corporate interests.
Right.
And again, corporations and government, it's two sides of the same coin. The corporations run the government. I think everybody knows that.
Yeah, the corporations, they basically are the government.
But I think also people need to know there is a secret entity that is above the corporations and the known government that's truly running this thing. And, you deal with those people, it's on a totally different level. But what I want to ask is about the Flint, Michigan thing. Back in the 70s, there was a movie that was talking about poison water in Flint, Michigan. I don't know the movie right offhand, but would you happen to know the movie I'm talking about?
I haven't heard this.
There was a comment in the section there. I didn't know. Hopefully, being from Michigan, you might know. But do you think there's a racial component to the thing that's happening in Flint, Michigan? Like, because it's a predominantly black area or whatnot?
I think that there is absolutely no question in my mind that it's a socio-economical issue, and people could unfortunately argue that it's not a racial issue, but if it's not a racial issue, it's quite a coincidence.
I think it's
the people in Flint are incredibly poor, and it's because of, I don't know if are familiar at all with the history of Flint, but Flint was a booming city back in like the 50s and 60s when the auto industry was big, and they were headquartered. I think GM was headquartered up in Flint, and that's when the city was built. Well, then when GM left, they took all the wealth with them, and so what was left was people who had the economy that had been built, and the people that had moved there to support the automotive industry, and now have nothing to do. They had no other industry. So the city just kind of went into decay. And unfortunately, what we see, and the same thing we see in Detroit, when these economies start to fail, it's in areas where it's predominantly people of color. And so you have, again, we could say, I could say, yeah, I'm sure it's a socio-economical issue. I suspect that there's a racial component to it, but I don't have any proof to it.
And that's so odd because, during the Civil War, Michigan fought for the Union. And now as we look at this thing, we see so many neocons that have immigrated to the North to where, like for instance, let's just talk about the socio-economic disparity issue, right? I'm assuming there's probably like an untold redlining system. If a young man or woman's from a certain area, they go to any financial institution, they're going to basically laugh at them getting a loan. All right. So what does that do? That means that if you have say that you was the best, hairstylist or even some sort of insurance guy or whatnot, you can't even go to the financial institution to get the capital to open up the business to try to make something.
Right, but the Arabs and the Indians can come in our communities and set up shop.
But they're underneath they're being funded by the federal government in many respects. Like in St. Louis, Missouri, for instance, in the 90s, a lot of Bosnians came to St. Louis. And the whole trip was they didn't have to pay like income taxes for like 8 or 17 years, something crazy. And on top of that, they were getting a check to the tune of like $18,000 a year. Now, of course, that's still like poverty range. But, that's a nice little baseline that the average American doesn't have.
But they get the business loans. Like these Arabs and these Indians, they come in Missouri, because we're in Missouri. They come over here and they, in Frontenac, a wealthy neighborhood in St. Louis County, Frontenac. A lot of rich people stay there. Mm-hmm. Arabs ain't posting up, ghetto ties, gas stations and all this stuff in Frontenac, but they are allowed and they're given loans, business loans, to go post up in poor minority communities, and even poor white people too. Because this, to me, it's never been about race. You either got money or your ass don't. Period. But these people are allowed to come in these neighborhoods and just set up gas stations and little convenience stores. But if I go try to get a small business loan, I'm going to get hauled out of there by security, and I got good credit.
Yeah, I certainly don't support. Again, I wouldn't support the government.
I'm just saying, as a libertarian, what would be the solution to that? You being a libertarian, what would be your solution? Get the government out of
influencing the banks. So the banks are, those programs. I would be shocked if it was a group of bankers that got together and said, "Hey." A group of bankers that's disassociated with the government. If they got together and just said, "Hey, you know what? I think we should invite a bunch of Bosnians to come over to our to live in this area, and we'll give them preferential treatment on loans."
Mm-hmm.
if that was the only component of it, you could blame the banks, right?
Right.
But you yourself said that that wasn't the only component. They were also given tax incentives. They didn't have to pay taxes, and they were essentially given welfare. So we shouldn't do that.
No.
You know,
or do it for the Native Americans. Do it for Native, and what I mean by Native American, any man, woman, child, whatever, born to USA parents, give them the welfare first before we give outside people the welfare. Not trying to be ignorant, because I'm consciously aware the reason why a lot of refugees try to come to this country, because, Brian, a lot of our black ops programs that we never hear about as commoners are fucking up their country so bad that it's intolerable to live in. So it's like a catch-22.
Certainly a big component.
Yes, it's a huge component, but no one ever wants to talk about that, see. It's easier to see the little girl or the little guy, oh, they're evil Muslim or whatnot. Well, let's analyze the situation. The reason why they're trying to lead the little warlord territory, because the warlord, he has access to oil. Well, Halliburton wants the oil. So they prop him up with guns or whatnot, and they can rape and pillage the hillside so they can get that oil. And what's that common? Because most people, Brian, seriously, most men and women, I don't care your nationality or race, creed or whatnot, all they want to do is live in peace, not be fucked with, and definitely not fuck with anybody else. But you can't have that lifestyle on this planet, because the moment you throw up that type of signal, the wolves will come in and eat you alive. Nobody respects people on their knees.
No, I agree. Nobody respects people that just down. But I think that I love what you said, that people inherently, people themselves are inherently good. Like, people don't want to hurt people. People don't want to kill each other. It takes a lot of conditioning to get a soldier to be able to kill another human being in war. I mean, I was in the Army, so I have a little bit of experience, but there's certainly probably some sociopaths. I mean, I'll give you that, right? There's no conditioning for some people, but the general population is peaceful and just wants to be left alone and doesn't want to hurt other people. And this is really one of the most peaceful times in world history.
Yes.
Regardless of what the news tells us. And so I think that if we were able to get this government, this corporate influenced government out of the way, where certain groups are not given favor, whether it's white people given favor, whether it's black people given favor, or whether it's Bosnians, nobody should be given favor.
Right.
It shouldn't matter. If you have a good business plan and you walk into a bank and you have good credit, and then you should qualify for a loan.
Right.
Should the loan be government subsidized? No, it shouldn't. Because what does government subsidy mean? It means that if you fail, it's back on the taxpayer.
Mm-hmm.
So so again, all of this stuff, everything is so intertwined, and all of it ultimately comes back to government established a system, and we're all fighting against it, and we keep turning to the government saying, hey, can you fix this? And the government keeps saying, well, yeah, we'll try. What if we do this? Try something, and it makes it worse.
Right.
Or it creates another problem. And so, fundamentally, what I would like to do, getting into the government, is just start chopping. Just start taking things away. Like, let's just get, and there's priorities. There's things that, I inherently, I don't want to cause anybody any strife or any harm. So it's not like you'll hear some people, especially a lot of Republicans right now, say, we need to end welfare. We need to end Medicare. Like, if of all the things we could quit spending money on, why would we start there?
Right.
Like, let's start by not spending money on killing people overseas. Like, that's a basic, right?
Right.
Because that doesn't benefit the taxpayers. The taxpayers don't benefit from people dying overseas.
No.
So let's stop that. All of the missiles that we launched into Syria, and I forget the numbers, but it was
like 100.
I saw a meme that referenced.
It was 100 plus.
How many times? Yeah, and at whatever it was, $20 million a pop.
Oh,
shit! Ridiculous. And how many times could we have fixed the Flint water problem just by, with all the missiles that we shot?
And Flint.
So why?
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's where we start. No, that's all right. That's where we start. Is we start by cutting this crap that is not any good, cutting the military-industrial complex.
Yep.
Cutting victimless crimes and getting people out of prison for drug crimes, which does nothing but, I mean, it functionally tears apart minority communities. Right? It takes in most cases men of color, and it locks them up for crimes related to using a substance.
Yes.
Are you kidding me? How many billions of dollars a year do we spend to keep people locked in a cage because they didn't live up to some politician's moral code?
Right.
I mean, that's ridiculous. And we as taxpayers are paying for that.
All day long.
You know, I wouldn't start by chopping things like Medicaid or welfare. I would want to have a plan in place to transition people to insurances that make sense. Where if you fundamentally, if you get in government out of the business of health insurance, the cost of health insurance is going to drop like a rock.
Yes, it will.
So, so I would want to set up programs that would help people that wouldn't qualify for traditional medical programs. But we need to just cut the fat. We need to get the federal government out of the education business. We need to get them out of the drug war. We need to get them out of one of my platform positions is abolish the TSA. And I like literally laugh in my head every time somebody says, "Well, what are you going to do if you abolish the TSA?" And I'm like, "What did we do in 2000? I mean, this was only 18 years ago."
That's what I was saying. They served us so well in 9/11, didn't they?
So how if you eliminate government from all this stuff, from schools, all this stuff, like how do you keep that stuff balanced and equal and fair if there's no entity there to watch this and make sure it's
no regulation
ran the way it should be ran? Because all I see is it's an opportunity for corporations to go in there and just rape and pillage.
Giving government benefit, you're right, but that's why we got to get the government get them.
I'm talking about if you get the government out
of being,
if you get the government out of the school system,
yes.
who regulates what or what guidelines are in place to make sure that these kids are actually being taught to learn instead of how to pass a test? Because I can go go ahead. I can go get a job at a charter school and I have no teaching experience. Now, I'm not the dullest crayon in the box and I'm not the brightest, but I guarantee you I wouldn't want my child learning algebra 2 from me. But I can go, it's a lot of charter schools out here that I can go teach algebra 2 in.
But I think the real question is, why do we need the charter schools to begin with? After you pull away that fucking onion, what we come back with, basically, Brian, how do we deal with keeping the racists out of the fucking limelight that would actually do harm to minorities?
How do we teach our
Because that's the root of all this.
Is how do you teach our kids how to learn without, the proper structures put in place? You don't want anybody teaching your kid anything. You want somebody that's skilled in that profession. Like, I don't want Larry that's hitting a whiskey bottle standing over there on the freaking corner teaching my kid science. And he don't even know science. And it goes back to my point with these charter schools. I can go be an algebra teacher and I have no degree. I never taught anything and I don't even know shit about algebra 2, but I can go get a job at one of these charter schools. Like that doesn't make any sense to me.
Who charters the charter school?
Betsy DeVos.
Who makes the charter school an official?
Corporations that own the charter schools that own the government.
No, it would be your state school board that actually gives them their license.
I just answered the main question.
Which is a part of the government. So I think that to get back to your first question is about who is who decides or who makes sure that our kids are being educated. We do.
It should be the parents.
I think fundamentally it's my responsibility as a parent to make sure that my kids are being educated in the proper safer way. Does that mean that I am a qualified educator? No, but it makes me responsible.
Right.
What we have right now is with the internet, we have the benefit of the ability. I mean, we could homeschool our kids.
Yes.
Easy, and it's free.
Yes.
All of the knowledge that these kids need is on the internet.
Yes.
I mean, you can get these programs, and you can do this homeschool, and you can get kids out of this. I mean, government schools are horrible. I mean, charter schools are probably worse. I don't have any experience with charter schools, but government schools are indoctrination centers. You know, they teach the kids to be obedient. They teach the kids to, you know, the facts, the quote facts of government that they want to teach them. They teach them basic stuff about math and questionable things about science. And so, why, if we can get our kids completely out of that system, we're not relying on the government at all. And especially in today's day and age where the information is openly available on the internet, we can, you know, and we can teach our kids. Just think about this. If you had a group of, you know, you don't even need to start thinking about schools, because frankly, I can't afford to send my kids to private school. I can't pay $5,000 or $10,000 a year, whatever the tuition is. But if I had a group of 10 kids in the neighborhood, we all got together and we said, hey, this is the curriculum, and we have and one of the parents, or the parents take turns, or however we're able to coordinate it with ensuring that they're following the curriculum, like, then school is essentially free.
Okay.
Like it's
okay, back. I don't mean to cut you off, but with the homeschooling, it's virtually, the average American works anywhere between 40 and 60 hours a week. It's virtually impossible for them to be able to educate their kids and maintain.
You're talking about a two-parent household, or one parent?
Even with the two-parent household, it's somebody, one of those parents are working a minimum of 40 hours a week to maintain, and they're living paycheck to paycheck. So it's impossible to educate your child. But now I'm not saying it can't be done, and I think it can be done, but certain mechanisms have to be put in place to allow those parents to educate their kids. Like if a home was self-sustainable, that means Joe doesn't have to work 60 hours a week. He can work 30, and his wife can only work 15, and then the rest of the time they can educate their kids because their house produces their own energy. You don't have to work as much. You don't need those resources.
And that gets back to this idea of it being, it's a number of solutions. So we can't, if we try and look at one particular problem or one particular question that we want to answer in a vacuum, we can't answer it. But you answered it. That's the exact answer, is that if we're able to make steps in the right direction, if we're able to pay less in taxes, if the government's not taking 30% of our income, and I understand that people will look at it and will say, well, income tax, the poor people pay less or don't pay income tax. That's right, but they still pay consumption taxes,
right? And
that is disproportionately unfair to poor people.
Yes.
So because they consume just as much as somebody who a wealthy person, and so the wealthy person can easily afford everything they consume, and the taxes to go in it, but a poor person can't afford it because of the taxes. And so if we were to eliminate some of the taxes that people were paying, they would be able to work less. And so that's one part of it, right? Less taxes, now you can work less. If we were able to bring down the cost of medical care because we get government out of medical care, then we're paying less for medical care. Then guess what? The cost of medical care comes down. And so there's all these pieces to the puzzle that have to fit together. And that's where, again, if you get back to even if you are working 40 or 50 hours a week, if you did, like, if all of a sudden today, snap your fingers, there's no government school. Do you guys have kids?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have your own kids? Okay. So snap your fingers right now, there's no government schools, right? But you still have to work. you're gonna do something, right? You're gonna get together and like kind of maybe similar to what I suggested. Maybe you guys have a better idea. That's the whole. That's
no,
part
I
of the
like
best part
that
about
community
PhD.
school.
The homeschooling thing, homeschooling thing is not a bad idea if it's enough parents at home, because one person to properly educate a child, one person can probably, I think, maybe at a max should be around 15 kids. You know, once you get over 15 kids, it's hard, you know, because you got these 5 students over here. They get everything you don't really got to pay too much attention to. Then you got 6 kids over here that's just playing out knuckleheads. And then you got the majority of the group that's in the middle. They're not behind the knuckleheads, but they're not as advanced as the top 5 kids in the class. And it's too many of them for one teacher to actually focus all her attention and give them the proper needs that they need. But in order for you to be able to have enough people that can properly educate the kids, something has to give. Now, I get what you're saying about the whole libertarian thing, but the way things are structured now, to move in the direction that you're talking about, said things are going to have to take place and be put into place before you can implement anything, because a lot of people are on equal playing field, you know, and that's from the inner city to rural America. They're just not on an equal playing field.
I agree, and I think that if you look at
what I'm saying is it's a handful of people that got all the money. And if you go in the inner cities, it's poor people there, and you go in rural America, it's poor people there. They're on the same playing field. The racial demographics might be a little bit different, but at the end of the day, you want to know where you stand in this country. All you got to do is check your bank account, your wallet, or your purse, and that'll tell you where you stand in this society, regardless of your skin tone. And I get your whole libertarian concept, and you know it might work. I don't know. But what I'm saying is, order for even an opportunity for those type of ideas to even be implemented with the current system that we in, something's going to have to put in place to put those people on an equal level playing field. If not, they're going to just get eaten alive like they are now, because they won't have the means to compete. I mean, all this stuff takes resources. Is he there?
Yeah,
Brian, are you there?
No, hold on.
Oh.
Nah, hand me a beer and I'll call him back. I mean, I'm calling back anyhow, but
Jeez.
I need a beer.
Not bad.
What the fuck? Hold on, folks.
Oh, man.
Look, it's hold on, shit. Hold on.
That's why we need like a technician or something.
No, it's just,
you know.
This is the other morning show. Those who've been with us for a minute, you already know where we're at.
Fuck
the newcomers, this is where we're at. This is what happens.
This is nothing new.
Oh, fuck.
Jeez, man, come on. I know, I'm just giving you shit.
You know, I'm doing the best I can, man.
I just want to thank
fuck, that's the wrong person.
Yeah, you want to. I just want to thank all the subscribers.
Hold on.
People that support the show. People that contribute to the show.
Hold on, here we go.
I just want to say thanks. You know.
Where should we? Oh, here.
Right there, man. You're good.
Hello,
Brian. I'm sorry about that. My laptop dropped. You know, NSA, I guess we were getting a little too deep. And they're like, let's shut this down now.
So, yeah, I just sent you a message. I'm like, what? I hope I didn't piss you off.
No, hell no.
Oh no, man.
Hell no,
man.
You know,
this has actually been pretty
good.
Hold
on. You gotta repeat what you just said. He was saying something that was really important. Repeat what you said.
I didn't told. It's gone.
Basically, he was saying in a nutshell that, you know, in order for us to get the society right, we had to figure out a way to get the people who are not on a resource or economic level field. Like if we was to do away with the government right now, a lot of people will get grinded up by the people that have the stuff now, just as if they would be grinded up without the government being in place, because they have not the resources to compete at the end of the day.
Well, let's think about this for a second. And this is because this is a debate that I've had with and I've actually kind of changed my perspective on it after a couple discussions with some people. But if the government ceased to exist right now,
right,
and you have major corporations right now, if you have a large corporation that employs thousands of people, you've got a CEO, let's say, and a board of directors, and they make a bunch of money, and then you've got a bunch of people that are out on the floor of the let's say it's a I don't know, some type of production facility, and they're out on the floor making all of these contraptions, and it's their labor that is, building the capital for this company.
right.
If all of those laborers just walked out, what happens to that company?
The robots.
The company's worthless, right? It's not worth anything. And so then the owner of that company is worth nothing because it has no assets. His assets are the people. And so there's a strong argument to be made that if you completely took government out of the situation, that basically the corporations would just cease to exist. I mean, they would end up, if they remained, they would be forced to be some type of collective ownership, because there's no means of enforcement at that point. The corporations don't have any type of government protection. They wouldn't, who are they going to call if they have an unruly worker? They're not going to call the police because the police don't exist. So
they'll call their goons.
It all becomes a matter of,
yeah,
right. And then from that springs some type of organization, and that's why that's a terrible way to get to freedom.
Yes.
Is through just flip the switch and government's gone.
Yeah.
But I think that if that ultimately were to happen, if government's out of the way, corporations, which are propped up by the government because they prop the government up, again, they both fall. And so I think that, and then you get to a truly, the opportunity for a truly capitalistic society where the benefit of your labor is really worth what it's worth, instead of it being worth, 25% because the boss marks it up or something.
Right.
But we gotta be careful with capitalism, because we have seen throughout history, people don't understand certain things aren't meant to be sold. Like, for instance, with the water situation up there with Nestle, right? That's the same gag the IMF, International Monetary Fund, does to, as our dear president says, third world shitholes. They'll go in after that country's currency has collapsed. They'll tell these people, or the new regime that pops up, we'll give you X amount of dollars, but in return now, that gold up there in the mountains, that has to be privatized. The water and the oil under the ground, that has to be privatized. And guess what? All the land that is actually productive and can grow fruit and vegetables, that has to be privatized as well. So what does that do? That basically puts that country or society in a state of perpetual debt to where they will never, ever recover. Just like us, folks. And this is what I hate to say, once you see the truth for what it is. Because we are on a fractional reserve system now, guys and girls, we are borrowing money that we can never pay back, because if I borrow $1, I'm expected to pay back $3. But if I only borrow $1, where am I going to get the other $2 from? That's where we're at. Banks right now, Goldman Sachs, they can actually give out loans. They can have $1 and give out loans to 10 people. That's the craziness. And you remember when the collapse of 2008 came through, and they were like, these companies are too big to fail. What they were telling us, in not so many words, is that basically America has been sold out since 1913, the creation of the Federal Reserve. We all been sold down the river. We're living in the biggest, most obscene Ponzi scheme ever devised by crooked fucking bankers. That's where we're at right now today. Each and every one of us, grandma, grandpa, everybody's caught up in this. That's why Social Security will not be available when let's say that you're in your 20s right now. When it's time for you to get those funds, they'll be long gone.
Yeah.
All right. So the reality, what I'm saying is this here, folks. The key to what we've been talking about tonight is a fundamental, rational change of thought in the society. to that respect, that's why these shows like the Other Morning Show, Special Report, other shows are so doggone important. Because if we can change the mind, and don't forget, in America, at the end of the day, the government is the people. And if the people's mind's not right, you're going to have a whacked-ass government. So, with that being said, it's pretty obvious why we have a whacked-out government. Because our minds aren't right, folks. We got to start thinking fundamentally different. Instead of thinking about consuming every damn thing, we need to be thinking about conserving things. That means delayed gratification. I know that's a horrible word, and a lot of you young people never heard that before. Delayed gratification. Delay your joy till the time is right. But no, we want this shit now. No, if I can't text that joy now, or if I can't pop up that joy now, it's not worth it. That's going to be our utter demise.
Hey, Brian, tell the people where they can find you if they like your ideas, or if anybody knows somebody that lives in your district in Michigan and think they should check you out. Tell the people where they can find you.
Yeah, my website right now is still the Senate website, so it's Ellison, ELLISON, the number 4, Senate.com, and that will be changed soon to Ellison4Congress.com, but it hasn't been changed yet. Check me out on Twitter at Ellison4Senate also, and I'm on Facebook. On Facebook, I've changed it, Ellison for Congress. So, look me up, and I'd love to hear from some of your listeners too. This has been great. I'm glad you brought up the Federal Reserve, man.
Yes.
You're woke. You're woke, man. I appreciate that. I love hearing from people that understand, really understand what's going on in this country, because not enough of us understand it. So thank you for doing what you do.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
you for coming on.
Thank you. And I want to have you back on.
Yeah,
seriously, we want to have you coming back on.
Man.
This is not just a one-hit wonder here. All right?
No.
I'd love to come back on, man. This was a great conversation. I think we got a lot more to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
We need to have more conversations like that, because if we don't come to some kind of agreement or something, they're going to kill us all.
Yes.
They're going to
We are all on the chopping block. We are all, everyone listening to this broadcast tonight, including you, Brian. I'm sorry, but you're in the same boat as us. We are all basically expendable. That's why they have chemtrails in the sky. That's why they have fluoride in our water. That's why they have mercury in our vaccines.
You're the first libertarian that I have actually had a conversation with.
And this is what this is about, man. Bringing people together.
First libertarian. I heard like...
And I think that...
Go ahead.
I think that's awesome. I mean, just looking at the understanding the principles of libertarianism, sometimes it takes a minute to wrap your head around, but this is why I'm running. The reason I'm running is because I want to talk to people like you guys. I want people to understand this. You guys are doing what you're doing, which is the same thing that I'm doing, but in a different way.
Yeah.
We want to wake people up, and people to understand that if we don't make some serious fundamental changes in this country, it's going to get ugly. It's going to get
very
ugly fast. So,
and see, a lot of our viewers and the people they know, they only hear one thing: Democrat good, Republican bad. They don't get an opportunity to hear a libertarian speak. They don't get an opportunity to hear the Green Party speak. It's either Democrat good, Republican bad,
or vice versa.
I know, because I enjoy politics, that I know that libertarian candidates or Green Party candidates, anybody other than a Democrat or Republican, they don't get the same opportunities to get their message out like a Democrat or Republican does. You're not going to be...
That's why I got to say shit like arm the homeless.
Yes.
Not going to... They're not going to allow you on the debate.
They won't. They'll stifling. They'll silence. And, I want to say for the record, Brian, personally, sir, I just want to say thank you for your active engagement, with the show, but more importantly, thank you for serving our great nation in the United States forces. Because you actually went down to your local MEP station, you held up your right arm, you gave the oath of enlistment, and you actually put your ass where the pedal meets where the rubber meets the road, dude. And for that, you have my, eternal respect and gratitude, and not only that, you're just a rational human being at the end of the day as well.
No, I can say the same thing about you, so I appreciate that.
It has been a wonderful conversation. We will have Brian back on, folks. This has been The Other Morning Show. I'm True Power's Mind.
I'm Diabetic Dolly. Go to Brian Ellison. He's running for House District 8 in Missouri for federal in Michigan. Sorry about that.
You sound like us. Hell, you should live down here too. You don't have no crazy accent.
Shit, they crazy down there in Missouri, boy. You get a mix of everything you come down here, boy. Just depending on where you go, you get a mix of everything. Missouri, it's not the show me state, it's the show me state for a reason. And I'm gonna leave it at that. If you want to ask Missouri, you'll figure it out once you get here.
There's one last thing I have to ask Brian before, do you know anything about the John Birch Society?
I've heard of it, but no, I'm really not familiar with it.
If you want to understand what's really cracking in America right now, it's and not so much towards you, Brian, but the listeners, the John Birch Society and Goldman Sachs. Understand the correlations, how they help each other, and you'll see who is on like the limelight as far as power. But once again, folks, they are just the puppets. The puppeteers, you'll never know until it's too late.
And Brian, if you don't mind, will you tell the listeners where they can find you again? If they if they know somebody that live in your district in Michigan and they like your ideas or want to know more about your ideas, tell them one more time where they can find you, please.
It's Ellison, ELLISON, 4, Senate.com. And there's a link. You can send me a message. You can get a hold of me by email through there. Everything, you can connect to my Twitter and Facebook and actually my Instagram that I hardly ever use.
And also after the show, I'll definitely contact you if you can possibly even text me that link. I will put it in the description of this video, so when people view this afterwards, they can go to that too as well. So there will be a link in the description below.
That's right.
Awesome. I appreciate it, man.
All right, no problem. Ladies and gentlemen, Brian Ellison, he's running for House District seat in the state of Michigan as a Libertarian. I want to say thank you, Brian.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Bye.
So, folks, I hope
what a great
you enjoyed the show. That was my first time ever talking to an actual Libertarian.
He's a super guy. I mean,
who was that clown that was faking like he was having a heart attack or something on the stage? That one Gary Johnson. Oh, Gary Johnson. But yeah, that was my first time. I thought the conversation was, we need to have conversations like this.
If we cannot talk to each other, we will never progress.
Right.
Seriously.
So tomorrow's, I didn't even want to say nothing. I didn't even want to make a video.
You can say it. Not a state health secret.
I be read through the comments when we have Mark on. I expect the women to gripe and complain, but some of these dudes that's sitting there writing small books and novels complaining, that shit get irritating. I expect a woman to complain.
But I don't even think they're human. I think those are robots.
I don't know if they are or not. I'm just saying, if you doing that, stop. It's annoying.
Oh, well, then they're not going to stop by you just saying, now I got 2 volumes ready to go.
They're going to flood it now, but that's cool. I do get a kind of a little bit of amusement. But tomorrow, by popular demand, I didn't make a video saying that Mark was going to be on the show.
But I did.
He did. You can go with True Power's Mind.
It's not just Mark. It's Judge Joe.
Can I get to it? God damn, you just want to steal a mofos. Shit. No, but seriously, this man right here, director of personnel, PR, public, I just said PR.
Yeah.
Whatever, all the behind the scenes stuff besides setting up for the show.
And the beer.
The master onion ring cooker, the
Minister
American
of
honey
catering.
shot popper.
Oh God.
This man did what he does. He got in touch with Judge Joe Brown. He got in touch with Mark from Anaheim. And tomorrow, 4 o'clock Central Time, we will have Mark from Anaheim and Judge Joe Brown on the show.
Yes, sir.
And brought to you live by True Powers Minds and Dimebag TV. Give this man all the credit. He did all the work.
But it's a team effort.
Together.
It's a team effort.
Director of personnel. It's going to be a hell of a plaque when he gets in office. But I just want to also thank all the new subscribers, all the people that's been with us since day one.
And all the folks that donated to us, sent us a little love to P.O. Box 133, DeSoto, Missouri 63020.
Even that motherfucker that made a comment about us, the one video we did, it was cold outside. We was inside and said, these mofos ain't got no heat. We want to thank your punk ass too.
And I just also want to go on the record. I have never been drunk or underneath the influence adversely of anything during any broadcast.
Have you watched the cocktail video?
I sip beer from time to time.
That's all we got. I'm Dimebag Darling.
True Powers Mind.
We'll see you tomorrow. Peace.
Yes. Tune in. It's going to be this shit.
I don't know how to stop this.
Yes. Let that shit.